The words hit me before the soda did. "You don't have a place here." My 9-year-old nephew, Jacob, shouted it, with all the righteous fury a kid can muster. The plastic cup of Coca-Cola in his hand wasn't just a drink, it was a verdict. He tipped it. And the cold, sticky liquid cascaded onto my jeans, soaking through to my skin in an instant. For a second, there was a stunned silence. And then, the laughter started. Not just a chuckle. It was a wave. A full-throated, rolling burst of amusement from my mother, Susan. A sharp, barking laugh from my father, Michael. And the worst one, the smug, "I told you so," chortle from my older brother, Justin. They laughed like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. My humiliation was the punchline. I didn't say a word. I just stood there for a beat. The cold of the soda seeping into my leg. The sound of their laughter echoing in the warm, festive air of my grandmother's birthday party. Then I turned, walked through the living room, past the half-eaten cake and the discarded wrapping paper, and straight out the front door. No one called after me. No one said, "Wait." No one stopped the joke. The drive home was quiet. The inside of my truck felt like a vacuum-sealed chamber. Completely silent, except for the low hum of the engine. It was a stark contrast to the house I'd just left, which was practically vibrating with forced holiday cheer and the sound of my family enjoying themselves at my expense. I glanced down at the dark, wet stain spreading across my thigh. It was already starting to feel sticky as it dried. A Coke stain. It seemed so small, so childish. But sitting there in the dark, it felt like more. It felt like a physical manifestation of my role in that family. An accidental spill. An inconvenient mess that everyone else could laugh at and walk away from. I'd spent my entire life feeling like a guest in my own family. But I'd never had it spelled out so clearly. "You don't have a place here." The words of a 9-year-old. Sure. But he'd learned them somewhere. Kids are just parrots who repeat the ugliest truths they overhear. And he'd learned that particular truth from his father, my brother, the golden child, Justin. And Justin had learned it from our parents. It was a lesson passed down through the family. A piece of unspoken knowledge that I was the only one who wasn't supposed to understand. I was Evan, the other son. The one who didn't go to business school. The one who got his hands dirty for a living. I was a welder. A good one. I owned my own small custom fabrication shop. I built things: gates, railings, sculptures. Things that were solid and real and would last 100 years. But in their eyes, I just played with fire and metal in a dusty garage. I wasn't a success story they could tell their friends at the country club. I wasn't Justin. Justin sold something. Software solutions. I think. It was one of those vague, important-sounding jobs where he wore expensive suits, flew to conferences, and used words like synergy and disruption without a trace of irony. He had the perfect wife, the perfect son, Jacob, the soda assassin, and the perfect life funded by a salary that never seemed to quite cover his expenses. A gap my parents were always happy to fill. My successes were measured in millimeters. In the perfect seam of a weld. In a client's satisfaction. His were measured in car leases and vacation photos. And in our family, the scoreboard was always tilted in his favor. I pulled into the driveway of my small rented house. The one I paid for myself. With money I earned from work they didn't respect. I killed the engine and just sat there in the dark. The stain on my pants had turned stiff. A dark patch in the faint glow of a street lamp. It wasn't just a stain anymore. It was a mark. A brand. A reminder that no matter what I built for myself, in their house, I would always be the one they were willing to spill on. And as I finally got out of the truck and walked towards my own front door, a cold, quiet thought began to form in my mind. It wasn't loud or angry. It was calm. And clear. And sharp as a new saw blade. They were right. I didn't have a place there. So it was time I started building my own. And I knew exactly where the foundation would be. That night, sleep didn't come. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the laughter. It's a funny thing about family. You can spend years building up a tolerance to the small slights, the little paper cuts of neglect. You tell yourself it's not personal. That's just how they are. You build a callus over the wound. But then a moment like that comes along. And it doesn't just cut you. It rips the old wounds wide open. It wasn't just about a spilled drink. It was about the years of accumulated evidence that all pointed to the same conclusion. I was the family's afterthought. I remembered my high school graduation. Justin's a few years earlier had been a massive party with a hired caterer. For mine, That my parents said they were proud, and then asked if I could help my dad clean out the gutters that weekend. When I won first place in a statewide metalworking competition for a sculpture I'd spent 6 months creating. My dad glanced at the trophy and said, "Oh, at least it'll make a decent doorstop." A month later, Justin closed his first big sale at work, a completely average part of his job, and my parents took out a full-page ad in the local paper to congratulate him. It was a constant, grinding comparison where I always came up short. He was the investment, I was the expense. He was the success story, I was the cautionary tale. It's funny. You read about this stuff. This idea in family psychology, called assigned roles. It says that to keep a family system, especially a dysfunctional one, in balance, people get cast in certain parts without even knowing it. There's always the hero, or the golden child, the one who carries all the family's hopes and is the living embodiment of their pride. That was Justin. His every achievement was a victory for the family. And to balance him out, there had to be the scapegoat. The one who gets all the blame. The criticism. The one who's pointed to as the source of any problem. That was me. The scapegoat exists so the hero can shine brighter. He exists so the parents have somewhere to dump all their own quiet disappointments about their own lives. Breaking free from that role isn't just moving out. It's an act of rebellion. It's tearing up a script that was written for you before you could even read. And lying there, I realized that every time I had swallowed their disappointment, I was just playing my part. Every time I stayed quiet, I was helping them keep their broken system in balance. The party wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the clearest, most brutal line of dialogue they'd ever delivered. But what really solidified the decision, what turned the slow burn of resentment into a cold, hard plan, was the memory of a phone call from a few weeks back. It was my grandma. Her voice was thin, worried. She'd mentioned a letter from the bank. Something about the mortgage. She said Justin was handling it. That my parents had given him the money to make sure everything was taken care of. He's so good with finances, she'd said, trying to reassure herself. But I knew Justin. I knew his finances. I'd seen the posts on his social media, the weekend trip to a ski resort, the new designer watch, the celebratory dinners at restaurants where the appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery bill. He wasn't handling it. He was spending it. He was taking the money meant to secure our grandmother's home, the very home where I was just told I didn't belong, and he was lighting it on fire to fuel his own ego. That was the final piece. This wasn't just about my own hurt anymore. This was about him. About all of them. Letting their precious golden child's carelessness threaten the one person in the family who had always treated me with simple, uncomplicated kindness. They were so blinded by the script they'd written that they couldn't see the real villain of the story. They were so busy laughing at the scapegoat that they didn't realize the hero was robbing them blind. That's when the anger finally faded, replaced by something colder, quieter, a sense of purpose. I wasn't going to have a screaming match. I wasn't going to send a long, angry text. That's what they expected. That was in the script. No. I was going to do what I do best. I was going to build something. But this time, I wasn't going to use metal and fire. I was going to use their own arrogance. Their own negligence. Asme, raw materials. And I was going to build a trap. The next morning, the world didn't feel different. But I did. There was no hangover of sadness. No bitter aftertaste of humiliation. There was just a quiet, humming energy under my skin. I didn't stay in bed. I didn't call a friend to vent. I went to the one place where I made sense, my shop. My shop isn't pretty. It's a rented cinderblock garage in an industrial park, tucked away behind a lumber yard and a discount tire center. It smells of ozone, hot metal, and grinding fluid. To my family, it's probably the physical proof of my failure to launch. To me, it's a kingdom. Every tool hanging on the pegboard wall has its place. Every stack of raw steel is organized by gauge. Every surface is coated in a fine layer of metallic dust that glitters in the morning light. This is a place of order, of creation, of tangible results. You can't lie to a piece of steel. It either holds a weld, or it doesn't. There are no politics, no favorites, just physics and skill. I had a big project to finish, an ornate, custom-designed gate for an architect's new home. It was the most complex piece I'd ever been commissioned to do. Full of intricate, curving lines that had to be bent and welded to within a millimeter of the design. For the next 8 hours, that's all I did. I lost myself in the work. In the intense blue-white glare of the TIG welder, the world shrank down to the tip of a tungsten electrode and the molten pool of metal I was guiding. It was a form of meditation. Each perfectly laid bead, each seamless joint, was a tiny act of defiance. It was a statement, I am good at this. This has value. I have value. Around 4 in the afternoon, the client, a man named Mr. Peterson, came by to see the finished gate. He was an older man with sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. He walked around the massive steel structure, running his hand over the joints, examining the finish. His expression unreadable. I held my breath. My entire operating budget for the next 2 months was tied up in this single job. Finally, he stopped, turned to me, and a slow smile spread across his face. It's better than the drawings, he said, his voice quiet with genuine appreciation. The craftsmanship, it's flawless. Evan, truly. He pulled out a checkbook. He didn't just pay me the final amount we'd agreed on, he added a 20% bonus. For excellence, he explained, handing me the check. The number on it made my head spin. It was more money than I'd ever held in my hand at one time. But he wasn't done. I'm building a new commercial property downtown next year, he said, pulling on his gloves. I'll need extensive custom metalwork staircases, railings, facade elements. The contract will be worth at least 10 times this one. It's yours if you want it. He didn't ask for a bid. He didn't ask to see other work. He just offered it. Because he'd seen the gate. He'd seen the proof. I stood there for a long time after he left, just holding the check. The weight of it feeling impossibly heavy and light at the same time. This was what it felt like. Recognition. Not the hollow, conditional approval my family rationed out. But real respect. Earned through skill. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from the moment. I glanced at it. It was a notification from Instagram. A new post from Justin. I clicked it open. There he was. My brother? Standing on the deck of a yacht. A champagne flute in his hand. A beautiful woman laughing beside him. The background was a perfect blue ocean. The caption read, "You have to reward the hustle. Number, work hard, play hard, number, blessed." The hustle. I looked from the photo of his borrowed luxury back to the check in my hand. A check I'd earned with sweat and burns and calloused fingers. The injustice of it was so sharp. So clear. It almost took my breath away. He was toasting his hustle with the money that was supposed to save our grandmother's house. The simmering anger from the party. The quiet determination that had been building all day. Finally cooled and hardened into something else, entirely. It wasn't hot rage anymore. It was cold steel. This wasn't about proving them wrong. It wasn't about getting even. It was about rebalancing the scales. It was about taking the world they'd built on lies and favoritism, and shaking it until the foundations cracked. I walked over to my workbench, set the check down carefully, and picked up my phone. I didn't scroll through my contacts. I opened a web browser and typed the name of the best financial lawyer in the city. The time for waiting for fairness was over. The time for creating it had begun. The lawyer I found wasn't one of those guys on a billboard. Her name was Anya Albright. And her office was a small, brutally efficient space on the 7th floor of a downtown high-rise. It had the kind of view that made you feel like you could see the whole city. Every moving part. Every connected street. It felt appropriate. I walked in wearing my work jeans and a clean shirt, still feeling the ghost of metallic dust on my skin. I laid it all out for her. Not the emotional backstory. Not the years of slights. Just the facts. My grandmother's mortgage. The missed payments. My brother's financial irresponsibility. The check from Mr. Peterson. My own savings. I want to buy the debt. I finished. Both the mortgage and my brother's car loan. I want to be the one holding the paper. She listened. Her face giving away nothing. She steepled her fingers. Her gaze sharp. This is an unusual request. Mr. She paused, looking at my file. Evan. It's aggressive. It's also perfectly legal. She explained the process. The banks holding the loans were likely losing money on them every month. A non-performing asset. They'd probably be happy to sell them, to cut their losses, especially if they were offered a lump sum in cash. But you can't do it as you. She warned. You'll need a shield. An entity. A limited liability company. It makes the transaction clean. Anonymous. Good. I said. I want to be a ghost. This is your entire life savings, she asked, looking at the bank statements I'd brought. Everything. She nodded slowly. All right. Let's build a ghost. The 2 weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and tension. We created Foundation Holdings LLC. The name felt right. I was buying the very foundation of the family home. The one they said I had no place in. While Ms. Albright's office began the delicate dance of negotiating with the banks. I went to my own bank and did the single most terrifying thing I'd ever done. I drained my accounts. Every dollar I had scraped together over 10 years of grueling work. Every penny saved by eating cheap and working late. Including the entirety of Mr. Peterson's check. It all went into a single cashier's check made out to the LLC. Looking at my bank balance, a number I had obsessed over. Nurtured. And watched. Grow, with painstaking effort, reduced to almost zero felt like stepping off a cliff. The days crawled by. I tried to work. But my focus was shot. Every time my phone buzzed. My heart hammered in my chest. Expecting a call from Ms. Albright. The bank holding my grandmother's mortgage was eager to sell. They'd been trying to get Justin to negotiate for months, with no success. They sold the debt to Foundation Holdings for 60 cents on the dollar. The car loan was trickier. It wasn't in default yet. But it was close. After a week of back and forth, they finally agreed. The day I went in to sign the final transfer documents, the city was gray and overcast. I sat across from Ms. Albright in her sterile conference room. A mountain of paper between us. This was it. The point of no return. I picked up the pen. The cheap plastic feeling heavy in my hand. I thought about Jacob's voice. My mother's laughter. My brother's smug smile. I thought about the cold, lonely drive home. I thought about my grandmother. Her worried voice on the phone. And I thought about my workshop. The one place I felt whole. I signed my name. Again and again. With each signature. I wasn't just authorizing a legal transfer. I was taking back control. I was ending the part of the story where I was the victim, and starting a new chapter, the one where I held the pen. When it was done, Ms. Albright gathered the papers into a neat stack. "It's done," she said. Her voice matter of fact. But her eyes held a spark of something new: respect. Foundation Holdings LLC is now the sole creditor for both properties. The banks will notify the debtors of the change in the coming days. "The next move," she said, pushing a folder across the table to me, "is yours." I walked out of that building, and back into the gray afternoon. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a profound, almost unnerving calm. The pieces were in place. The trap was set. All I had to do now was wait for the echo of their own actions to finally reach them. And I knew it wouldn't be long. The first tremor hit on a Tuesday morning. I was at the shop, calibrating a plasma cutter, when my phone, which I'd left on the workbench, started to vibrate violently. It was my mother. I ignored it. It rang again immediately. I ignored it again. Then came the text. A string of frantic, misspelled words. "Call me now. Something terrible happened to Justin." I felt a cold, quiet hum in my chest. The first echo. I wiped my hands on a rag, took a slow sip of my coffee, and called her back. "Evan," she practically shrieked into the phone. "Thank God. You will not believe what they did." I kept my voice flat. Neutral. "What? Who did?" "Mom. The bank, or the dealership. Or whoever. They came and took his car, towed it right out of his driveway in front of all the neighbors. Justin is humiliated. He's a wreck." I pictured it. The sleek, overpriced SUV he couldn't afford. The one he'd bragged about for months. Being hoisted onto a tow truck. The shame. The curtain-twitching neighbors. "Why did they do that?" I asked. As if I didn't know the answer down to the penny. "Well, it's obviously some kind of horrible mistake," she said, her voice rising in indignation. "Justin said he was maybe a few days late on one payment. But he's been so stressed with work. This is what these predatory companies do. They prey on good people." "Good people?" I let the phrase hang in the air. "That's terrible," I said. The words felt like foreign objects in my mouth. "I know your father is furious. He's talking to his lawyer. We're all meeting at Grandma's tonight to figure out how to help him. You'll come, won't you? He needs his family right now." The irony was so thick I could have cut it with my plasma torch. He needed his family. "Sorry, Mom. I'm swamped here. A big new contract. Can't make it." There was a pause. A flicker of annoyance in her voice. "You're always so busy with that shop. Evan, this is your brother." "I know," I said. "Tell him I hope he figures it out." I hung up before she could reply. For the rest of the day, My phone was a constant, buzzing source of secondhand panic. Texts from Justin. Mom said she talked to you. You know this is BS. Right, the bank is screwing me. Text from my dad, Evan. Call me. We need to present a united front on this. A missed call from an unknown number that I knew was my father trying to get around the fact that I wouldn't pick up for him. I ignored it all. I put on my welding helmet. And the world dissolved into a focused point of brilliant light. The frantic buzzing of my phone was just a faint, distant annoyance, easily drowned out by the hiss of the torch and the roar of the ventilation fan. They were in their world. A whirlwind of drama and self-inflicted crises. I was in mine. A world of control, precision, and tangible work. They were talking about how to fix a problem. I was the one who had written the equation. I could picture the scene at Grandma's house that night. The righteous anger. My father, Michael, pacing the living room, talking about lawsuits he'd never file. My mother, Susan, fussing over Justin, bringing him his favorite snacks as if he were a sick child. And Justin, the center of it all, performing his role as the tragic victim of a cruel, unfair system. They would rally around him. They would pool their money. They would coddle his ego and validate his irresponsibility. It's what they always did. They were so focused on the first storm, on the single dark cloud that had appeared in their perfect sky, that they had absolutely no idea the hurricane was still 5 miles offshore. They didn't know that the repossession of the car was just an appetizer. It was a distraction. It was the magician showing them a coin in his right hand, while his left hand was preparing the real trick. That night, as I was locking up the shop, I saw one last text message had come through. It was from my father. We've decided to pay off the car for Justin. This is what families do for each other. We take care of our own. I smiled. I put my phone in my pocket and looked up at the dark sky. A light rain was beginning to fall. I knew that somewhere across town, a postal worker had just delivered a certified letter to my grandmother's mailbox. It would sit there overnight. A quiet, unassuming paper bomb, waiting for morning. They thought taking care of family meant throwing money at the favorite son. They were about to learn what it meant when the other son decided to take care of the family's foundation. The letter sat in the mailbox all night. A crisp white rectangle waiting in the dark. The next morning, my father, Michael, went out to get the paper, still full of self-righteous fury about Justin's car. I can picture him seeing it. A certified letter. The kind of mail that is never good news. The kind that requires a signature and immediately puts a knot in your stomach. He would have taken it inside. His bravado from the night before deflating slightly. Back in the kitchen. The mood was probably somber but defiant. They'd likely been up half the night, strategizing how to fight the bank and restore Justin's honor. Or at least his line of credit. My father would have placed the letter on the table. My mother, Susan, would have looked at it with suspicion. What is it? It's for Mom, he'd say. But it looks official. He would have torn it open, his annoyance quickly turning to confusion. And then to a pale, cold dread as he read the words. I know the legal jargon Miss Albright used. It would have been dense, professional, and utterly ruthless. Notice of debt acquisition. The mortgage note for the property at has been legally acquired by the creditor, Foundation Holdings LLC. The aforementioned loan is currently in arrears. A full payment of the outstanding balance is required within 30 days to avoid the commencement of foreclosure proceedings. He would read it out loud, his voice faltering. The reaction would have been instantaneous. Panic. Pure, unadulterated panic. The car was a luxury, an embarrassment. This was the house, the family home, the place where they hosted Christmas, where my grandmother had lived for 50 years. It was the bedrock. What does that mean? My mother would gasp. What is Foundation Holdings? Is this even legal? Justin would be defensive. Cornered. I was going to make a payment, I just needed a little more time. The bank must have sold the loan to some vulture fund. This is their fault. They would have seized on that explanation. It was easier. It kept the blame outside the family. It was another faceless, predatory corporation kicking them when they were down. They'd see themselves as victims. Twice over. My father, in his typical fashion, would try to take charge, to wrestle the problem into submission. This is ridiculous. He'd boom. They can't just do this. I'm calling Bob. Or Loye. He'll sort this out. We'll sue them. And that would be the moment. The beautiful, terrible, inevitable moment I had been waiting for. I can hear the phone call in my head. My father. on speakerphone for the whole family to hear. Barking into the receiver. "Bob. It's Michael. We've got a big problem. Some faceless corporation is trying to steal my mother's house out from under her." He'd explain the situation, his voice full of bluster, expecting the lawyer to offer a simple solution. A legal loophole. But there would be a pause on the other end of the line. The sound of a keyboard clicking. Foundation Holdings LLC. "You said the lawyer would ask." "That's right. Some bottom-feeding vulture fund that bought the debt. We need to know our options. Can we fight this?" More clicking. A longer pause. The lawyer would clear his throat. "Michael." He'd begin. His voice suddenly different. Cautious. "This isn't a vulture fund from out of state. I've just pulled the public registration documents." "Well, who is it?" my father would demand. Impatient. "Who are these people?" And then the lawyer would deliver the final, devastating line. The one that would change everything. "Michael. Foundation Holdings LLC was incorporated 2 months ago. It's a local company." A beat of silence. "And according to this filing, the sole registered agent, the only owner, is your son, Evan." And then nothing. Only the sound of dead air on the speakerphone. The sound of a world tilting on its axis. I can picture their faces. My father. His face draining of all color. The phone slipping slightly in his hand. My mother. Her hand flying to her mouth. A silent, horrified gasp. And Justin's face. A mask of utter, gut-wrenching disbelief. The slow-motion implosion of the golden child, realizing the scapegoat he'd dismissed his entire life, had just checkmated the entire family. The car wasn't a mistake. The letter wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was a plan. Meticulous. Cold. And carried out in complete silence. The person they thought was weakest, the one they had literally told had no place in their home, now owned it. The power hadn't just shifted. It had been conquered. They were standing in my house. It took them 2 days. 2 days for the shock to curdle into rage. 2 days to convince themselves that they were the victims. When they finally came for me, they came together. A united front of wounded pride. I heard their car pull up. The crunch of tires on the gravel outside my shop, too aggressive to be a client. The door to the workshop flew open, banging against the interior wall. And there they were, my father. Michael. His face a thundercloud. My mother. Susan. Clutching her purse like it was a shield, and my brother. Justin. Standing behind them. His expression a pathetic mix of anger and fear. I was in the middle of a weld, joining 2 pieces of quarter-inch steel. Sparks showered onto the concrete floor. The air was thick with the smell of hot metal. I saw them standing there in the harsh fluorescent light. I saw their mouths moving. But I couldn't hear them over the high-frequency hum of the welder. I didn't stop. I kept my helmet down, my hands steady, and finished the bead. I let them wait. I let them stand in my world, on my terms, surrounded by the noise and the fire and the work they never understood. Finally, I finished the seam, killed the torch, and flipped up my helmet. The sudden silence was deafening. "What?" my father's voice boomed, filling the quiet. "Is the meaning of this?" I took my time, setting the torch on its hook, removing my gloves. I looked at them. 3 perfectly manicured suburbanites, standing in a place of dirt and labor, looking completely out of their element. "You're going to have to be more specific," I said, my voice calm. "Don't play dumb with us." "Evan," my mother snapped. This scheme. Buying your grandmother's house from under her. How could you be so cruel?" "Cruel." I walked over to the sink, turned on the tap, and began washing the grime from my hands. "Let's talk about cruel. Is it cruel when your family laughs while your nephew humiliates you? Is it cruel when you're told to your face that you don't have a place in your own home?" "That was a joke," Justin chimed in from the back. "Jacob is a kid. You're destroying our family over a joke." I turned off the water and faced them, drying my hands slowly. "This isn't about the joke, Justin. It was never about the joke. It was about the laughter. It was about the fact that for my entire life, you have all made it abundantly clear that I am the lesser son, the backup, the disappointment. I looked at my parents, and I was fine with it. I accepted it. I built my own life, away from all of you. But then you let him." I nodded at Justin. "Let his carelessness threaten Grandma's home. The one thing that was supposed to be safe. We gave him the money to handle it," my father insisted. And he spent it on watches and vacations. Did you ever once check? Or did you just assume the golden child could do no wrong? They had no answer for that. The truth was a heavy, awkward silence in the room. This is revenge. Evan, my mother said, her voice shaking. Pure and simple. We raised you better than this. I almost laughed. You didn't raise me to be this. You raised me to be quiet. To accept my place. To swallow the insults, and never, ever rock the boat. I took a step toward them. But you know, the funny thing is, you were right. At the party. All of you. You were right. I didn't have a place there. I gestured around the workshop at the heavy machinery. The blueprints tacked to the wall. The finished pieces of metalwork, gleaming under the lights. The physical evidence of my labor, and my success. So when you made it clear, I didn't have a place in that house, I realized I needed to build my own foundation. Something solid. Something real. Something that no one could take away from me. I met my father's furious gaze. My mother's tear-filled eyes. My brother's shocked expression. And now, I said, my voice dropping to a low, steady calm. The foundation of your entire family is standing on my property. The words landed in the silence and shattered it. There was nothing left to say. There was no argument. No defense. No loophole. It was just the truth. Hard and unyielding as the steel on my workbench. They had made the rules. For the first time in my life, I had simply played the game better. I watched them stand there. Their anger deflating into a kind of stunned, helpless despair. I turned my back on them and picked up my gloves and slid my helmet back down. The conversation was over. I had work to do. They left. I didn't watch them go. I just heard the sound of their car doors slamming shut, one after the other, followed by the engine starting and the sound of tires spitting gravel as they pulled away. I stood there in the ringing silence of my workshop, the air still tasting of anger and ozone. I had won. I held all the cards. But it didn't feel like a victory. It just felt quiet. The quiet of a battlefield after the fighting is over. Later that night, I didn't celebrate. I sat on a stool in my shop, the place that felt more like home than any house I'd ever lived in, and made a phone call. Not to them. To my grandmother. She picked up on the second ring. Evan, her voice was small. Hi. Grandma. I said. My own voice softer than I expected. I need you to hear this from me. You are safe. You are not losing your home. Nothing is going to change for you. She was quiet for a long moment, and I heard her take a shaky breath. They told me what you did. She said. Your mother, she's... I know. I interrupted gently. And that's between me and them. But you and I are separate. You can stay in your house as long as you want. All I ask is that from now on, any business related to the house goes through my lawyer. That's the only change. It was the boundary. The new wall. Clear. Simple. And non-negotiable. Okay. Evan. She whispered. Thank you. We talked for a few more minutes about her garden. About a book she was reading. Normal things. When we hung up, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. My mother did call. The next day, her tone wasn't angry anymore. It was defeated. Pleading. Evan, we're sorry. An apology. The words I had spent a lifetime craving. And now that they were here, they felt hollow. Like a currency from a country that no longer existed. I appreciate the call. Mom. I said. My voice polite but distant. Grandma knows she's safe. That was my priority. I have to get back to work now. I ended the call. I didn't need to hear her excuses. I didn't need her tears. It was too late. That evening, sitting alone in the quiet of my shop, I thought about the kid I was just a year ago. Sitting in his truck with cold soda, soaking into his jeans. Feeling like a complete and utter zero. If I could send a message back to him, I'd tell him this one day. You'll get the apology you're starving for. But it won't be what you think. It's not a magic eraser that can wipe away 20-some years of feeling like you were the spare part. It can't patch the holes from all the nights you wondered what was so wrong with you. It's like someone apologizing for giving you a scar. You can accept the apology, but the scar is still there. But here's the amazing part. The magic isn't in the apology they finally give you. The magic is in the moment you hear it. And you realize, with a kind of shocking clarity, that you don't need it anymore. You're not waiting for it to feel whole. You've already painstakingly glued the pieces of yourself back together. You've already done the work. That scar, you realize, isn't a symbol of your pain anymore. It's a testament to your strength. It's proof that you can heal yourself. And that, I thought, looking around at the solid, real world I had built with my own two hands, is the only vindication that matters. A few weeks later, I got the signed contract from Mr. Peterson. The big one. The one that would secure my business for the next 2 years. As I was filing it away, a young kid from the local trade school I'd hired as a part-time apprentice looked over at a complex metal sculpture sitting in the corner. "Man," he said, his voice full of awe. "How did you even learn to build something like that?" I looked at the sculpture, then around at my shop. My kingdom built on a foundation of their doubt. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. A real smile. Not of triumph. Not of revenge. But of peace. "You just decide you have to," I said. "And you start from the ground up." Story 2. My shoulder hurts from carrying 8 weeks of existence through Denver International. And the keycard clicks in my apartment door lock. My home smells just how I left it. Lavender air freshener and coffee beans. But there's a problem. The afternoon sun catches Aunt Paula's pearl necklace as she stands in my living room. "Welcome home, my love." Her smile is excessively broad, like a rubber band on the verge of breaking. "I brought you a small item." My carry-on falls off my shoulder and hits the wooden floor with a thump. I know the silver border on the immaculate white envelope and her well-groomed fingers from the wedding planning web pages I saved months ago. We don't always write the best love stories. Sometimes life does. "Please." The envelope quivers in my grasp. Inside, sturdy cardboard is adorned with beautiful black writing. "You are cordially invited by Kayla and Landon." My cousin's name rotates in the room next to my fiancé's. The day is getting closer to the date. In 3 months, I will already be holding my phone. Landon's contact is being pulled up by muscle memory. The call is unsuccessful. I give it another go. I'm told by a computer voice that the number has prohibited incoming calls. "While you were away, he and Kayla came to understand that they were meant to be." Paula sits on my sofa. "Last Christmas, Landon and I chose the sage green one. There's a reason these things occur. Every wall makes fun of me in our engagement pictures. Garden of the Gods with Landon." I laughed as he put his arms around my waist and threw back my head. "At Winter Park, we were constructing a snowman. The ring is rose gold, with my grandmother's diamond restored. I left it on my nightstand before my trip. And it's still there. I had been worried that I might lose it during training. For your career, the certification program was crucial. Landon wanted someone there." But Paula's voice oozes honey-coated malice. Someone encouraging. I relived our 5 years together, including the anxious coffee date when he spilled his latte all over his khakis. Our 2-year move-in together, and his old futon squeezed next to my IKEA furniture. Last April, he made a suggestion. Easy and ideal at our preferred breakfast location. When I informed him of Vancouver's project management certification program, he had appeared to be encouraging. As he assisted me in looking at apartments close to the training facility, he added, 8 weeks will fly by. We had previously reserved the mountain lodge for 100 guests on October 3. We had accumulated $18. 0 inches a savings account. The majority of it comes from my consultancy bonuses. Our final video conference. It was 2 weeks ago. Replays in my mind. His rambling responses and his hasty conclusion to the discussion. Your classes kept you quite occupied. Paula checks over her manicure. Landon felt left behind. Kyla got it. She works in the dentist's office part-time. Keeps respectable hours. You know, when he needed someone, she was there. The parts fit together like a hellish jigsaw puzzle. Paula's July cookout with the family. The shortening of Langdon's calls. His Instagram postings about unforeseen blessings and destiny are ambiguous. And his texts are more irregular. The time was ideal. 3 clicks on my banking app on my open laptop on the kitchen counter confirm my suspicions. 4 months ago, Landon resigned from his engineering position. Never once was it brought up. Unlike you. Kayla won't leave him for a job. Paula straightens her linen trousers and gets up. She is aware of what is important in life. With silent finality, the latch behind her clicks. Surrounded by the life I believed I was returning home to. I collapse to the ground. On the refrigerator. The future Mrs. and Mr. Sign. The vendor contracts are crammed into the wedding planning binder. While giggling at my folly, we took a vacation shot. I pull the frames down one at a time. My hands shaking. In reverse. Every good event turns into a lie. As it strikes the garbage bag, The snowman picture breaks. I close the final box of memories as the first rays of morning peek through the windows. With everything packed away, my spine straightens. But my eyes burn from sobbing. They are able to have one another. If someone can't even tell me the truth, I won't fight for them. I'm not going to fight for any of it. At 3 a.m. The phone rings. With the break of day, my stomach sinks as I see Mom's number appear on my screen. Unless anything is amiss. She never calls this late. Tonight. Your father spoke with Paula. Decades of fatigue are reflected in her voice. You need to know anything about your aunt. Ecolapse on my sofa. Surrounded by the partially packed boxes from my previous existence. What took place? Do you recall how I got to know your dad? The line is filled by a long pause. It was during the county fair when Paula first noticed him. She told everyone they were essentially dating for weeks. My fingers follow my grandmother's quilt's well-known design. Although it wasn't. Not even close. At the Ferris wheel. She once waved at him. There's no comedy in Mom's chuckle. At the Harvest Festival. When he asked me to dance. For months. Paula didn't communicate with me. Each link revealed a more repulsive image as the parts fit together like a jigsaw puzzle in reverse. Isn't she still punishing you via me, just 6 weeks after your father and I were engaged? Paula wed Frank Thompson. She did it to prove something. And everyone knew it. When Frank left Mom with 2-year-old Kayla, Mom's voice broke. She made rent with your father's aid. Since then, he has been sending her money each month. The space whirls. I reach for a pen because I require a firm grip. For 25 years. Every month. Wu Bai Mei Yuan. Similar to clockwork. In the background, papers are rustling. Tonight. He finally stopped. Said that he would not contribute to his daughter's happiness being destroyed. I tighten my throat. Dad. Calm and steady. Who didn't ever speak loudly. Who taught me how to balance my checkbook and replace my own tires. Who, even after my Odiotuvith birthday, gave me a hug whenever I left the house. An hour ago, Paula arrived at the house. Mom's voice gets sharper as she demands that the wedding be joyful and claims that Kayla is the rightful owner. You owed them now for leaving Landon behind. In my hands, the pen cracks. My palm is covered with black ink that bleeds like a bruise. I left him behind. For that certification. I was away for 8 weeks. He urged me to get. Paula had Kayla bring him dinner 3 evenings a week while you were getting that certification. Invited him to get-togethers with relatives. She made sure we were unaware of it. Mom's tone becomes stern. Since the day your father chose me, she has planned everything. Including this. My love. My chest aches with the burden of ancestral scars. Every disparaging remark regarding my profession. Every analogy between my career goals and Kayla's conventional choices. At family get-togethers, Paula always referred to me as the busy one. A grin curled her lips. But it never made it to her eyes. Tonight. Your father told her something. It has been 30 years since I wanted to say it. Mom's voice is a combination of pride and grief. You didn't lose Bob because of Margaret. He remarked. You lost him because you didn't see him as a person to be loved. But rather, as a prize to be won. My cheeks well up with tears. Not for Kayla. Not for Landon. And not for the life I believed I was creating to endure the decades of poison. Paula's resentment of the little girl she had brought up to be a weapon rather than a person was reflected in our family tree. I have a pal. Before I can stop them, the words flow out. Sarah from the consultancy company. In Seattle. She has an extra room. Seattle. Mom catches her breath. So far. So good. Right now. I need distance. I gaze at my apartment's walls, which are still splattered with remnants of a past that vanished while I was pursuing my goals. I've applied for jobs there already. How about the wedding fund? My bonus is accounted for 80% of the sum. I steady my voice. Tomorrow morning. I'm going to close the account. Paula is going to go crazy. Pamitia. The phrases convey assurance rather than fury. I finished bearing the consequences of a conflict that began before I was even born. In my front door? A key rattles. Before Dad's recognizable bulk fills the doorway. I pause. My heart racing. He has crimson eyes. When Dad sees me on the couch with my phone up to my ear, his silver hair rumples. He takes 3 steps across the room and hugs me. His scent, a mix of safety and Old Spice. He declares, I have her. Loud enough for his mother to hear. Dad. I'll bring breakfast home. His flannel shirt is pressed against my face. I'm so sorry. No. He rumbles his chest into my ear. There's nothing to apologize for. Years ago, I ought to have witnessed what Paula was doing when she first attempted to compete with your mother. You should have taken that money away. Via Kayla, and you. I received an offer of employment. In Seattle. My voice is muffled by his shirt. In 2 weeks. They want me to start. He clenches his arms. We'd best go packing then. However. What about Kayla? Paula. And every other wedding guest. Dad gently places his hands on my shoulders and pulls back. The silver threads in his beard catch the lamplight. Signs of time. Somehow. I didn't show up. I'll take care of the visitors with your mother. He clenches his jaw at Paula. Some individuals contaminate the water for so long that they lose the ability to drink anything else. I'm not seeking retribution. I'm surprised with the reality. All I want is to get rid of it all. Then we will offer you that. He takes a big packet from inside his jacket. However, I believe you should read this first. Statements from banks cover my coffee table. Paula Thompson received 30 years worth of canceled checks. Notations in the meticulous handwriting of my father. Payments for rent. Auto repairs. Kayla's braces. Camps during the summer. Costs for applying to colleges. I recorded everything. The voice of Dad. Ruffin believed that I was assisting her in creating a life that I never witnessed. I was only paying for her retaliation. A final remark for services provided in destroying my daughter's happiness is on the last check, which was dated 3 days ago. The payment ceased. I feel the calluses from decades of building labor as I reach for his hand. I learned how to ride a bike from the same hands who constructed my treehouse as a youngster. Supported me through every heartbreak and bruised knee. Thank you. My voice breaks. For picking me. For picking Mom. Every single day. Child. His fingers get tighter around mine. Each and every day. Denver's lights sparkle like falling stars outside my window. The account that was meant to finance my wedding package will be closed tomorrow. I created this existence in boxes. Cite personal circumstances in your letter of resignation. But tonight, I allow myself to feel the weight of 3 generations of women's decisions as I lean against my father's firm warmth. Paula's pride was bitter. Kayla's deliberate treachery. The calm power of my mother. My own strength. Released at last from the prison of familial duty. Seattle is in 2 weeks. Until a city where nobody is aware of my name or the significance of the past, I've decided to settle down. Where I have the opportunity to create my own tale every morning. Free of the specter of a long-standing rivalry that I never asked to inherit. I close my eyes and inhale the scent of confidence and Old Spice. Tomorrow won't be long. Tonight is the night of healing and truth. And the unwavering pulse of love without conditions. Weeks become months. And days become weeks. And now, after 3 months, the constant cadence of the Seattle rain tapping against the windows of my flat has grown more reassuring than depressing. From my little container garden on the balcony, stretches of Puget Sound, under dense clouds, gray and unending whitecaps dance. The unfamiliarity of this vista frightened me 3 months ago. There is a hint of potential now. At 6, my alarm goes off. I get grounded by the morning routine. My new toaster's finicky settings are still a mystery to me. So the toast is slightly burning while the coffee is boiling. I can see resolve replacing the black rings in my eyes as I quickly gulp my reflection. I already have the Vancouver accreditation mounted on the wall of my Marshall consulting office. Evidence that sometimes fleeing entails fleeing in search of something better. I leave for work. At the morning meeting, Roger declares that the Wilson account needs new eyes. A heavy folder was slid across the conference table. You've dealt with similar logistical issues before. Brooke. My back straightens. Indeed. Several parallel situations were discussed in my certification program. Now the words come steadily. Expert. Nobody here is aware of Landon. Regarding Kayla and the wedding that ought to have taken place last month. They just know me as the driven new employee who consistently stays late and produces results before the deadline. Roger nods and proceeds to the next item on the schedule. However, I see Sarah from accounting looking at me favorably. Little successes add up. I'm at the Global Flavors cooking class on Thursday nights. Slicing veggies next to people I didn't know before, but have now made friends with. We're trying Thai food tonight. And the industrial kitchen smells like ginger and lemongrass. Chef Marcus shows the right approach by gently correcting the knife angle. My grandmother taught me how to bring order out of chaos throughout decades of Sunday meals. And my hands still recall those teachings. One clean cut after another. On the screen of my laptop, the cursor blinks. Dr. Sharon's weekly treatment assignment is due later that evening. Examine how your family approaches connections across generations. I write about Kayla's taught helplessness. Aunt Paula's desperate hold on status. And my own past impulse to solve everyone else's issues while disregarding the warning flags in my own life. My focus is disrupted when my mother texts me. Facebook is flooded with pictures of Kayla and Landon's wedding. Do you want me to give you a call? Not necessary. Working on the Wilson proposal. I type back. It's not a complete falsehood. Beside me. The folder is open. Logistics and numbers. A pleasant diversion from the past. My phone doesn't turn on. Mom finally gets it. She knows when to press, and when to give me space to think. From tearful admissions, to real talks. The weekly Sunday calls have changed with time. We talked about her garden restoration for an hour last week. And we didn't bring up the elephant in the room once. Over the course of 3 restless nights, the Wilson plan comes together. Projections and graphs are at my fingertips. Clear and keen insights. Roger's brows raise at the creative solutions I've planned out when I present to the client team. Very good work, he remarks afterwards. Normally, the promotion track takes a year. But we may need to shorten that period. My face lights up with a sincere smile. It feels natural in the bathroom mirror for the first time in months. Later, when I'm washing my hands, I notice that I'm humming. I'm startled into stillness by the sound. But it's a momentous occasion. 10 full hours. Without considering the treachery. On the weekends, Lucy from Formby joins me for walks. Our feet lead us down meandering pathways and through discovery parks. She is 65. Just lost a spouse. Filled with tales about 1,972nd Seattle. When she discusses recovering from a loss. Experience, not sympathy, is the source of her knowledge. It's been 3 years since my Harold left. One foggy morning, she tells me, I still reach for him in bed on certain days. However, you discover how to create a life in the voids. When I eventually tell the whole tale, everyone in my grief support group nods. Nobody gives hollow platitudes or advise. All they do is listen. And in some way, I really need it. Marcus remarks afterwards. You're handling this with remarkable grace. Last year, his wife left him for their business partner. He understands. 6 months ahead of schedule. The promotion letter is delivered. The team leader has a corner office with a view of the noise. I schedule flights for the next weekend and email a picture to my dad and folks. Mom sends home family pictures from decades before the betrayal and freshly made cookies. Through the family grapevine, we make new memories in my little kitchen while giggling about Dad's attempts to become proficient with chopsticks at the neighborhood sushi restaurant. News comes in. Landon is still unable to get employment as a writer. Their rent is barely covered by Kayla's part-time work as a dental receptionist. They now reside with Paula. Her tiny ranch home was packed with 3 people who shared the one bathroom. They are worthy of one another. Rachel, my cousin, is always ready to share family rumors via text. I don't read her message. I no longer find delight or agony in their hardships. They are only facts. Like the rain in Seattle or the nighttime traffic in the morning. I water my burgeoning plant collection, which includes a temperamental peace lily near my desk, succulents in my bedroom, and herbs in the kitchen. Green objects that, depending on the care they get, either flourish or perish. No complicated feelings. No, ulterior motives. Just progress that is sincere. One leaf at a time. My therapy diary is brimming with observations on boundaries established and patterns broken. I've stopped apologizing for my job goals, which is one way that Dr. Sharon observes my development. The finest kind of retaliation is success. After saying that, she stops herself. However, I think that you have a history of seeking retribution. She is correct. There is no longer a lady who left Denver in a U-Haul full of crushed dreams and a broken heart. Someone stronger is standing in her place. Someone who knows it's not cowardice to leave a harmful situation. It's bravery. The sound of rain hitting my windows has turned into a soothing melody. Uncertain evenings. The city lights and stars are reflected in the music. A reminder that even amid the shadows, beauty may be found. I no longer use social media. Ceased inquiring about domestic news. In the gloomy sky and verdant parks of Seattle. In the quiet victories and serene mornings. My tale is being written itself. Memories of the land still catch me off guard some evenings. He laughed while eating breakfast. After exhausting days, he would give me bare embraces. However, those times are now less common. In the light of my reconstructed life, the ghost is disappearing. A 5-year romance ended in treachery. Helped me learn more about who I am. More than a lifetime of simple joy ever could. Next to the Vancouver accreditation, I tack the chronology of my team's first successful project to the wall of my office. Evidence that going away is sometimes necessary to move forward. In filtered sunshine, the corner office layouts flourish, expanding and green as they look to the future. Like a smack, the email flashes on my screen. After 7 months of stillness, Seeing Landon's name in my email makes my coffee mug shake against my Seattle apartment's breakfast bar. Our wedding fund is the subject. I know it's difficult, but I have to talk to Brooke about our shared savings. That money was intended for both of us, and we are now in a hard spot. I never intended for any of this to transpire in this manner. Simply said, circumstances took control. I'm not getting the money I expected from writing. Kayla's hours were also reduced by her dentist practice. Next month, we might be evicted. I hate to ask, but in order to maintain our roof over our heads, I need my portion of the wedding cash. After all, it was our money. Help, Landon. Please. I go over his message 3 times while the fall rain beats down on my windows. Every syllable has a deeper impact than the last. Our funds? As he departed his engineering career, my consulting bonuses helped to build that account. Not a word. Situation. He seemed to be thrust into my cousin's arms by an unexplained power. I didn't touch the keyboard for 3 days. With surgical precision, the words flow. The funds were intended for our future. The day you abandoned me and wed my cousin, you forfeited that. Don't get in touch with me again. I move my finger over the send button. No rage. No charges. Just the facts. As clean as broken. Phone. Click. Block. Completed. Mom's voice crackles over my phone 2 weeks later. Kayla and Landon arrive to the residence with Paula. The wedding funds are being demanded. What it's being handled by your father. I'll give you a call back. Hours pass slowly. Before my phone buzzes once again, the skyline of Seattle changes from steel gray to purple twilight. This is something you must hear. According to Mom, Paula began yelling about the young couple's legitimate property. While they waged his war, Landon stood there looking at his shoes, while Kayla broke down in tears over bill collectors. I let out a sour chuckle. They thought they would be supported by my savings. And that's only the beginning. Mom's tone becomes stern. At last. Your dad lost it. Informed Paula that he had stopped giving her payments each month. Checks every month since her divorce. $500 every month. She was enabled for 28 years. Oh, he said. You used the kindness of my family to destroy my daughter. He replied, staring her in the eyes. I can still hear the truth in their words. What was the number of times Paula had arrived at their door, with another crisis, to maintain harmony within the family? How many checks had they written? Paula fell into her sofa. Mom went on to cry, as she talked about how life never gave her a fair shot. How she was broken and never really recovered after witnessing me marry your father. How it felt like history was being repeated to watch you flourish while Kayla struggled. My throat gets constricted. She made me pay for your joy. She never lost anything. I told her. She was never fair. Mom's voice conveys decades of understanding silence. She controlled every circumstance and made every family get together into a contest. And if that wasn't enough, she took what she believed I had taken using Kayla. That night, the family group text blows out, and Susan takes Paula's side. Jennifer, a cousin who was betrayed by Uncle Robert, brands Kayla a homewrecker. Grandmother Ruth says, Thanksgiving will not be held. A fresh message from an unidentified number appears. Did Mom really plan this? Kayla, did she intentionally push me in Landon's direction? He no longer writes at all. Just engages in video gaming while working. All I received were his unfulfilled promises. But perhaps she wanted me to have what you had. I didn't reply. So I closed them. Allow karma to complete what it began. Rain continues to pour in Seattle, removing a further layer of rage. I was unaware that I was still carrying. I'll get up, make my coffee, and conduct my team meeting tomorrow. I'll feel a little lighter after joking with my coworkers and grinning at the barista. My account's funds are no longer polluted. It is neither a sign of treachery nor a wedding fund. It's liberty, as I create a life they cannot touch. Karma is working slowly and steadily. Dad could be correct. Kindness may occasionally turn into disaster. When we allow our fear of conflict to influence our decisions, the simplest solution is sometimes the most difficult. Not anymore. The notice of eviction flutters in the fall wind. The red letters stand out sharply against the white paper that my mother's weekly updates tacked to Paula's front door. I find out that before the rent check began to bounce, they lived in the Victorian townhouse for 3 months. In Aurora, Kayla, Landon, and Paula now live in a 2-bedroom walk-up where sirens are played every night. At Target, he stocks shelves. On our Sunday call, Mom says, now. Her tone conveys the cautious objectivity she saves for challenging subjects. Early shifts. Last week, he was spotted wearing the red vest. I watch the amber liquid swirl as I concentrate on adding honey to my tea. Morning light streams into my Seattle apartment. which is spotless and bright. Sweetheart. What about his writing career? Mom hesitates. I don't believe one ever existed. The words subtle like stones. 5 years of listening to Land, and talk about his novel. The characters who lived in his head. The literary agent, who loved his work, if he could just finish it. All excuses to avoid looking for real work while he supported us. While I believed in him, their arguments echo through family gossip channels. Kayla screaming about broken promises in the Walmart parking lot. Landon's bitter accusations at Thanksgiving dinner about being pushed into a fantasy life. Paula's constant presence in their tiny apartment. Driving final wedges between them. Remember when your father proposed to me? Instead of Paula, Mom's voice softens with old memories. She married Tom Richardson 2 months later. Never loved him. Just wanted to prove she could get her husband to... A familiar story. But the parallels strike harder now. Tom left after 3 years. Paul has been chasing security through other people ever since. I watch a ferry cut through Puget Sound. Sunlight sparking off waves. Did she ever apologize to you? No. Mom's laugh holds no bitterness. Paula doesn't apologize. She justifies. The truth of this plays out in real time. Paula starts calling relatives. Voice thick with tears. Asking for loans. When they refuse, she tries. My grandparents. Their response travels through the family grapevine with lightning speed. Not until you apologize to Brooke. Grandma Ruth reportedly said. And mean it. My father's monthly support checks to Paula stopped. He'd sent them ever since her divorce. $500 of guilt. Money paid in silence while she slowly poisoned our family bonds. The seclusion hurts Paula most. Thanksgiving invites dry up. Christmas card lists shrink. Family members stop accepting her calls. Meanwhile, my own quiet success speaks volumes. Team leader at 28. A corner office with a view. Respect earned through work rather than manipulation. Your cousin's starting to see it. Mom tells me one Sunday. Kayla mentioned going to therapy. Says she's recognizing patterns from childhood. I think of Kayla's tearful face in old photos. Paula usually had her hand on her shoulder. The relentless push to succeed at all costs. To compete. And to be flawless. Well done. On a shock Tuesday. The phone call that makes all the difference occurs. As I listen to Kayla's stuttering voice. My boyfriend James offers me tea. All her sharp edges sanded down by humility. I knew it was wrong. She says. I let Mom convince me I deserved your life more than you did. That if I just played my cards right, I could have everything you worked for. Her breath catches. I'm so sorry. Brooke. Not because I need anything from you. Just because you deserve to hear it. I watch James move around my kitchen. Starting dinner prep. His quiet strength. His respect for my boundaries. His understanding of healthy love. Everything Landon promised but never was. Thank you for telling me. I say finally. I hope you find peace. Kayla. Far away from anyone who makes you doubt yourself. She leaves for Florida the next month. A clean break. A fresh start. Landon returns to engineering his creative dreams. Deflated. But his feet finally on solid ground. Paula sits alone in her apartment. Writing letters I'll never read. In the spring. The first one shows up at my parents' place. The next month. Mom explains the meticulous penmanship. The border of silver resembles a wedding invitation. She blames her mother's circumstances. But she never speaks about her own decisions. Return to sender. I tell her certain doors need to stay closed. James finds me on the balcony that evening. Wrapped in the quilt my grandma sewed. He doesn't inquire about the letter, or offer platitudes about forgiveness. Just holds me while I watch the city lights blur through tears. I didn't expect to shed. You don't owe them closure. He murmurs into my hair. There is nothing that you owe them. But I found my own closure. In this tranquil life I've constructed in the family I've chosen. The boundaries I've set. The calm I've gained, via stepping away. Some bridges burn for a purpose. New ground is fertilized by their ashes. Where things can grow healthier. I remove Landon's final picture from my phone later that evening. It's because I now understand. Not because I'm angry or hurt. Closing the door and leaving is perhaps the most self-compassionate thing we can do. As we create something greater. Let karma keep things in balance. Below my window is a city teeming with opportunities and loves. Paula sits alone with her explanations, somewhere in Aurora. Without her mother's voice in her thoughts. Kayla discovers who she is in Florida. In Seattle. I observe the fairy lights that resemble stars. At last. Without having to interpret any of it. Some lessons are pricey. But they are well worth the investment. I must remain at peace for another 2 years. Warm shadows are thrown on faces. I've come to love by the string lights that glitter over our back terrace. The aroma of Linda's pumpkin bread and James's renowned apple cider wafts through the open French doors into Seattle's fall air. This life has been meticulously constructed over the course of 2 years. And everything feels finished tonight. Mom puts her wineglass down and puts both of her arms over my shoulders. You look good in this house. My love. Her gaze straight to the wall where a candid picture of James and I is displayed next to my team leadership award. Mount Rainier hike. No false promises. No wedding photographs. Only genuine moments. True and hard-earned. The bell on the door rings. With her husband holding a potted flower and shouting over the ruckus. Sarah from accounting comes. These individuals are unaware of Kayla. Landon. Or betrayals in the family. They are aware of my current self. The lady in charge of important initiatives creates a delicious chocolate souffle and helps at the literacy center. At dessert. Dad's phone buzzes. His demeanor transforms as he reads the message. And I know before he speaks. News from home travels fast. Kayla and Landon's divorce was finalized yesterday. He explains gently. Next month. She will be relocating to Boston to work as a teacher at a private school. With firm hands. I pass him the coffee pot. I'm hoping she'll find what she's seeking. There is no resentment in the words. When losing everything brought me to this point. How could they? I was driven into a life far richer than the one I had intended by that betrayal. After the final visitor has left, I discover Kayla's email sitting in my inbox. There's something in the subject line. But my finger is hovering over delete. At last, truth causes me to halt. She writes, I owe you an explanation. I let Mom to plan everything out. Because it would imply that my mother's aspirations for me would finally come true. I wanted to think that Landon was my soulmate. There was never a fit between us. From the beginning. The marriage was a mistake. I'm not pleading for pardon. All I wanted was for you to know the truth. That evening, James discovers me on the balcony. Covered in the plush throw blanket he got me for my birthday. I lay back against his chest as he wraps his arms around my waist. Seeing the water's flickering lights. Thank you for sharing your ideas. He slams his voice into my shoulder. Kayla sent an email. In Boston. She is making a fresh start. I looked over at him. She said she was sorry. In a way. What are your thoughts about that? I think about the query. It tastes like wine. Calm. I'm no longer burdened by her decisions. Without prodding. He nods in understanding. This man, who builds furniture in our garage and reads history books before bed, came into my life when I had given up on finding love. He recognized that diamonds held too many memories. So he proposed with a simple sapphire ring. Speaking of options, he continues. I've been considering the guest list for our wedding. My mouth twitches. I'll guess. You want to know if Kayla should be invited? I had the thought. You seem lighter now that you've read her email. Reunion is not a prerequisite for forgiveness. On his forearm, I trace the anchor tattoo. I want the best for her. But that is the end of that chapter. The phone rings 2 weeks later. Dad once more. His tone makes my heart tighten. Paul is in the medical facility. Aggressive breast cancer. He says. Your mom believed you ought to be aware. The previous version of me would have quickly booked a flight, hastily arriving at a bedside where I was not welcome. However, I now understand limitations and the distinction between martyrdom and compassion. I assure him I'll send flowers. The nice kind she always boasted about from that store. After the supper, I hung up. James and I watched the moon paint silver pads over the ocean while we stood at the railing that same evening. I'll order the flowers tomorrow. Surrounded by those who have earned their place in our tale. I will begin organizing our little wedding tomorrow. I'll give Mom a call tomorrow to discuss some of the insights we've both acquired on ending hurtful patterns. But I cherish this time tonight. James's warmth at my side. The life that we are creating. The silent assurance that sometimes all is lost. Demonstrates just what you must maintain. There's a hint of wood smoke in the wind. Down the hill. Someplace. I shut my eyes. Inhaling the aroma of fall and opportunity. There are some teachings that are absolutely necessary. And are well worth the investment.